Today I'm going to be taking a white privilege test. You heard me right. This one is probably going to be quite controversial. Why on earth am I even doing this? Is this just me taking the mickey or what? The reason I'm doing this is because this kind of nonsense is actually coming into the church, like wholesale, right? And no one is addressing it. Okay, out in the secular world, you have people talking about this kind of stuff all the time. With this left and right garbage that's very, very political and all that kind of stuff. And generally, I prefer to stay away from political garbage. But the fact of the matter is, this political stuff is infecting the minds of Christians as well, and Christians are bringing this rubbish into the church now also. And in the church, there is if you're a Christian, you know only one creed and one creed alone, and that's Jesus Christ, and that's it, right? It's Jesus Christ. And every single person on the planet is your brothers and sisters in Christ, and that's it, right? Color, whatever, it becomes irrelevant. And not only do you become blind to the color of other people, but you become blind even to your own race, right? I'm no longer Brazilian or whatever the case might be. I'm a child of God, and that's it. And I do what God expects of me. Culture be damned, okay? Your culture is irrelevant. First, what comes is, what does God require from you as an individual, as a human being? Your responsibility to God. And even the way you treat others in such a way, not because there's some inherent whatever, but because they are children of God as well, and the life that is in them is given to them by God, and it's out of respect for God. And then you have a love for your fellow man, because then God loves you and God loves them and all that sort of thing. But it's all centered around God. It's not centered around my culture or my ethnicity or any of that garbage, right? And the problem, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, this white privilege test, is because this is just a new form of racism, and this ridiculous mentality is now coming into the church as well, and is beginning to divide people in the church, right? And I'm seeing it all over the place, and absolutely no one is talking about it. And I think a lot of the times it's because people are actually just too cowardly to do it, to be perfectly honest. But this white black stuff, it needs to end. And just because now it's fashionable to come down on white people, right? It doesn't mean that that's not racism as well, right? The whole thing is just being reversed. We're getting nothing right. It's like with the gender thing, right? It's fashionable to bash men. Guess what? Bashing men is still sexism, right? If bashing women is sexism, so is bashing men. We're getting nothing right, and it's becoming completely and utterly ridiculous. Right now, even though I'm loath to do it, okay, because it's just so idiotic, for the purposes of this particular video, I actually am going to have to tell you what my racial category is, right? And the problem with someone like me is I'm so mixed race that there's actually no way really of knowing what racial or ethnic or whatever group that I actually fall into. So, for example, on my mother's side, well, I was born in Brazil. I was born in Rio de Janeiro, right? On my mother's side, there's native Indian from South American Indian. There's black from West Africa that was taken over there in the slave trade, and then there's a mixture of other European things that from people who colonized it, specifically Portuguese. So it's a whole complete mixture. So, short of getting a DNA test, my family is so mixed that on that side, that there is no just one thing in it at all, right? Although the majority is African and native Indian from that part of the world. And then I've also got some gypsy and some other stuff in there as well, even a little bit of German. It's ridiculous, right? And then on my father's side, my father was born in Angola, actually, in Africa. He's Angolan, but the family is Portuguese descent, but Portuguese, not Portuguese as in native Portuguese, but Jewish, right? So when Jerusalem fell, there was a mass exodus of Jews. When the Romans destroyed it, Jews spread into Europe all over the place, and a lot of them settled in Portugal and in Spain. and formed Jewish communities over there. And for those of you that don't know, Lopez, which is my surname, Lopez is actually a Jewish surname, right? Many people don't realize that, but Lopez is a Jewish surname, and depending on whether Lopez is spelt with an S or a Z at the end, an S is the Portuguese variant, and the Z is the Spanish variant, and then and we're called Sephardic Jews, right? That's the people that came from what they call the Iberian Peninsula. And the Jews that lived in the Iberian Peninsula were actually run out, were forced to either convert to Catholicism, or they were actually persecuted out by the Catholics back in the Middle Ages. So, I mean, if there's one group that knows all about persecution and oppression, it's the Jews, man, let me tell you. So that's sort of where my family background is, kind of thing. But for the sake of simplicity, right, I'm going to go with my birth nationality. So if you look at my birth certificate, it'll say was born in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro. So I'm going to go with Brazilian, which means I'm Latino, right? I'm a Latino. I don't look like it, but that's because I live in England and the sun never shines here, okay? So just one of those things. But when I was living in South Africa, I lived in South Africa for more than 20 years, got my education there. That's where I learned how to speak English. And people used to confuse me for all kinds of things. Sometimes they thought I was an Arab. Sometimes they thought I was whatever. I got all kinds of things. So, I can get pretty dark. But again, that just depends on where I live. So there you have it. So here is a a white privilege test, right? It's a checklist, right? It's a checklist, and you can go through this checklist, and this checklist is supposed to help you determine whether you have white privilege. Now, here's the thing, right? What's the definition of racism, right? We're going to have a look here. What is the definition of racism? It is the belief that all members of each race possess characteristics, abilities, or qualities specific to that race, especially so as to distinguish it as either inferior or superior to another race or races. So the fact that there is even such thing as a white privilege, right, means that this is racism, because you are attempting to attribute to a particular race something specific to that race, which is racism. Right? It's racism. It's disgusting, right? I don't know how white people put up with this. I really don't. It's just we've had so many years of this of racism and segregation and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I lived in South Africa, so I know all about the apartheid and stuff like that, and to get rid of all that kind of stuff, which is a blight and a blemish on the history of humanity. And now we're coming up with this garbage again, right? And it's state sponsored and sponsored at the university. So this white privilege test comes from a university, right? So here's the thing. So those of you that have children at university or college, right, in the humanities, just become aware of this, what's going on in the universities, because this comes out of the universities. And if you're a Seventh-day Adventist, particularly, right, because we've got the great controversy where Ellen White specifically talks about the fact that universities and things like that are ideological battlegrounds. But anyone that has got any common sense and has any sense of history knows that all the ideological battles are fought at the university. That's where it starts. That's where the indoctrination happens, right? Where you indoctrinate the youth who are going to become the future leaders of a particular country. So if you want to index, right, what kind of an attitude is going to happen in the future, all you need to do is look at your youth and see, what do they believe? What are they being indoctrinated in? And you know what kind of garbage is then going to come out later. I mean, it's just, if you think about all the stuff that's going on, right? What indexes, what time indexes exactly the kind of insanity in the world that's going on at the moment, the 60s. Right, the vast majority of the insanity that's happening today in the world comes out of ideologies that was floating around in the 60s. Right, we thought we got rid of Marxism and communism and socialism and all that stuff, which killed millions upon millions of people, and we thought we got rid of it, but no, it was kept alive in the universities, and it's bearing fruit today. So here's this where this test comes from, right, and this is a report that comes out of the College Fix. So this is a a college newspaper, right, that's actually reporting on this, and you can find it. You can find it on the, just Google it, right? You watch your computer melt, right? It says here that students in a sociology class at San Diego State University, right? So those of you who attend or are thinking about sending your children to this university, think again, right? This happened last year, okay? Now the professor, right, said, right, that if you are taking his class, right, the name of the professor is Day Elliott, offered the option to her sociology class students that if she would give them extra credits if they took this 20-question test, right, that aims to illustrate that a racial privilege is actually a form of privilege, right? So you would get given extra credits if you would go and take a white privilege test to see how much white privilege you have, okay? So since when is this the kind of thing that should be going on in university anyway? This is brainless. This is idiotic, okay? And we need to push back against this complete abject stupidity, right? So I've got the checklist here in front of me. I'm gonna put it up on the descriptions for you guys to have a look at, right, and see what's going on over there, so you can see it for yourselves that I'm not making this up, right? So here's a white privilege checklist. So there's a little the checklist opens up with a little description of what white privilege is. Okay, again, this is just racism. This is just pure racism to attribute to a particular race something that is only and to that particular race to either make it superior or inferior. And here's the thing, right? This is actually, it's bad enough. So you get white supremacists, right? You get white supremacists out there, and they attribute to the white race that they're superior to everyone else. But now this is an ideology that's saying white people have privilege. So this is actually meant to cast a blemish. So, for example, a neo-Nazi type of person will say, well, black people are ignorant. That's something that they would say, and give various reasons, right, in order to say, well, these people are lesser, right? And this is the same thing, right? This is nothing but an excuse for people to rag on white people, right? Which is this is evil, right? This is sin. Peggy McIntosh, right? Probably a feminist as well, okay? Because feminism is another retarded ideology. It's completely ridiculous, right? This political stuff, it's just, the Bible says something. It says, by their fruits you will know them. And people think so shallow, right, that they just, feminism is X, right? And they just believe it. It's like, no, okay? Just because a person says on an official statement that this is what they're for, doesn't mean that that's actually what they're for. Look at the fruits. Look at what they actually produce in a society, and then you'll know exactly about whether they're right or not, and whether what they're teaching and whether their goals are actually laudable or not. Okay, so here's this white privilege nonsense. Peggy McIntosh, Associate Director of Wesleydale College Wellesley College Center for Research on Women. Yeah, okay. Another one of these illegitimate type of things, women's studies and things like that, gender studies in university, right? Where you go and pay through your nose for something that's gonna help you nothing in life. Describes white privilege as an invisible package of unearned assets. These things are always invisible, right? And this is the problem when you deal with these ideologues and you tell them, give me a specific example. Right? They will never be able to. It's always invisible. It's always this ethereal thing that you can never pin down, right? Because then it allows them to fabricate as much rubbish as they want, and they can never be disproven, because it's always this ethereal, this invisible thing, right? That you just make up, okay? An invisible package of unearned assets which I can count on cashing in each day, but about which I was meant to remain oblivious. So if you don't know it, doesn't matter. You weren't meant to know that you have white privilege, poor white people. White privilege is like an invisible, weightless knapsack of special provisions: maps, passports, code books, visas, clothes, tools, and blank checks. Okay, this is Peggy McIntosh, 1989. So this garbage has been around a while, huh? In this invisible, ethereal thing, all right? So now on to the test. Okay, so we're going to see whether I, as an ethnic minority, because I'm in the UK, there's not a lot of, well, there's actually an increasing number of Brazil. Here's the weird thing, right? The West is so oppressive, okay, and yet Brazilians, Latinos, are flocking by their thousands to come to this country. Why? Because supposedly because we want to be oppressed, huh? Okay, that's why we're coming here. Ridiculous. So here's the test, right? The following are examples of ways white individuals have privilege because they are white. Okay? It's ridiculous. Please read the list and place a check next to the privileges that apply to you or that you have encountered. At the end, try to list at least 2 more ways you have privilege based on your race. Right, so now here's the thing, right? If I come out as privileged on this test, right, then it shows that the test is invalid, because if I, as an ethnic minority, have privileges, then it debunks the idea that only white people have privileges based on their race. So, question number 1. Question number 1 is, I can arrange to be in the company of people of my race most of the time. Well, yeah, that is true. If I wanted to associate with nothing but Brazilian people, I would be able to. The fact is, I can't be bothered, right? Because I'm not interested in Brazilian people or Chinese people or black people or white people. I'm interested in decent people, right? If you're a decent person, great. I will be your friend, right? I mean, who does this? Who goes around with a little checklist just like, oh, I want to arrange to only be around people of my race. That's racism. I mean, it's just racism by another word. It's totally stupid. And here's the thing, right? Do you honestly expect if you go and, like, if I go to China, is it reasonable for me to expect to be able to find Brazilians around every corner? No. Right? If I want to associate with Brazilian people all the time, I should move back to Brazil. Ridiculous. I mean, who expects that? I mean, you know, as someone who packs your bags and goes to it, and now I know that for some people, right, like the black people in the United States, that their ancestors were taken there as slaves. Tragic. You know what? Same thing in my country. A lot of our ancestors were taken there through slavery. Fair enough, right? But here's the fact of the matter. In those countries, there are just so many people that you can associate if you want to be black or white or whatever. There are so many black people. 13% of the that's a lot of people, right? 13% of the population in North America are black. So easily enough. And if you're Hispanic or Latino, it's you can't swing a cat without hitting some your person of your ethnic minority group in that country. It's just because it's so diverse. There's so many different people over there all over the place, right? And it's the same thing. It's the same thing in Brazil. If you are a fairer skinned Brazilian or a darker skinned Brazilian, it is so easy for you to find someone that is that looks like you do on a superficial. But why would you care? Why would you care about finding people that look the way you do? I mean, come on. Yeah, sure, it's nice to have people that speak the same language or whatever the case might be. But you know what? Quality over quantity, man. Come on. Question number 2. I can go shopping alone most of the time, pretty well assured that I will not be followed or harassed. Well, yeah, so that means I'm privileged. Or maybe that's just male privilege, huh? Well, actually, no. This depends on where you go shopping. To be honest, right? If it's a dodgy area, well, then the answer is no. But if it is a decent upmarket area, then the answer is yes. You will not be followed. I mean, come on. No one gets followed around unless you are in some really, really dodgy area where you probably shouldn't be in the first place, right? I mean, if I think about the time I spent in South Africa, right, there was even though I'm not white or black, I hang in the ether somewhere in between the two. There were certain places that I just would not go because I know people judge on a superficial manner, right? They judge you on a superficial manner. And this is the thing, right? In South Africa, I was never dark enough to be black, and I was never light enough to be considered white. So I'd actually get it in the neck from both sides, to be honest, right? That's just the degree of stupidity. But the fact of the matter is, I'd be safer in a predominantly white place than I would be in some of predominantly black places, if they were like really big crime areas and stuff like that. And the fact of the matter is, if it was a predominantly white area that had a lot of crime, guess what? I'd also have a problem. So it has nothing to do with color. It has to do about what kind of mentality exists in this particular area. Is there a lot of crime? Is there a lot of thuggery and stuff like that? Yes, then regardless of the race, you're going to have problems. Hell, if I go back to Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro, ask any person from Rio de Janeiro, what is the crime like over there, right? I have family. I know people that carry 2 wallets around with them every day. People who live in Brazil and walk around in their own neighborhoods. So they're surrounded by their people of their own ethnicity, and they carry 2 wallets, right? One is for themselves to use wherever they go, and the other one is for the thieves that are most likely going to harass them, right? So that when someone walks up to you, puts a gun between your face, right, and says, give me your money, then you always have something that you can give to the thief in order to get him off your back, right? And then in that way, you don't actually then give away the stuff that you need for your daily living. And that's how bad it is. And that's people of their own race, okay? So this is completely, this is an issue of crime. It's not an issue of racism. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, right? Question number 3. I can turn on the television or open to the front page of the paper and see people of my race widely represented. Depends on where you live. If I lived in Brazil, yes. If I live in the UK, no. Well, that's to be expected. Ridiculous. Who cares? Right? Why do you care? So I'm now oppressed because I don't see more Brazilian people on British television. Seriously? Right? So unless there's more Brazilian people on British television, I'm oppressed and they have privilege. Of course, you expect to have privilege in your own country. Hello? Madness. I mean, this is not even an issue of privilege. This is just a question of numbers, right? If you go to Brazil, there's like 500, there's like somehow millions of Brazilians. Well, then you would expect, just by odds, just by mathematical probability, you would see a lot more Brazilian people on the television. It just makes sense, right? But now that I'm in the UK, right, there are very, very few Brazilian people in this country. Very, very few compared to everyone else. There are more Muslims in this country, right? So I'm going to get offended now because I see more Arab people on television, which you do in this country. You see a lot of Arab people. I mean, the mayor of London is an Arab, for heaven's sake. Am I now going to be offended because, oh, none of them are Brazilian? Really? Come on. It's a numbers game. If there was like 20 million of us here, 20 million Brazilians in this country, then chances are I would be like, maybe there's something wrong if I didn't see more Brazilians on television. But it's like, of course not, you know. And it's the same thing in the States, right? Black people, 13% of the population. Well, then it stands to reason you're going to see less of them represented in whatever industry you point your finger at. Right? But here's the thing. When it comes to like the NBA, no one seems to worry about the fact that there seems to be a racial disparity there. Right? So here's the thing. When there's a racial disparity that favors white people, right? Racism or not, let's put that to the side, right? So if there's a racial disparity that favors white people, it's a problem. But if it favors any other race, suddenly it's okay. It's hypocrisy, right? It's double standards. And again, why would you care? I mean, front page of the paper. If you're on the front page of the newspaper, it's usually a bad thing. Like, guy murders 50. It's like, no. Generally, you want to stay off the front page of a newspaper, okay? The fact of the matter is, if there's ethnic minorities on the front page of the newspaper, guess what? Racism. It's like, We're not violent. We're not troublemakers. Why are we always on the front page of the paper? It's like, yeah, the front page of the paper is usually where you don't want to be. Oh, grief. Yeah. Whatever it is you need to do to get on the front page of a newspaper, it's usually not a good idea, right? So, question number 4. When I am told about our national heritage or about civilization, inverted commas, I wonder what they're trying to imply. I am shown that people of my color made it what it is. Or maybe not if you're talking about the Ming dynasty. Or the Mongol dynasty. Or one of those other... like, what do you expect? Come on. If we're talking about, like... If you see someone named Jesus, right, suddenly crop up in one of the contributors to the greatest Chinese civilization ever on the planet, you need to start questioning a couple of things, right? I mean, come on, right? It depends on the civilization you're studying, right? If you're talking about the Ethiopian Empire, which was a great empire and did all of the bits and pieces that it did back in the day, then yeah, you should expect to see a lot of black people involved and no white people involved, and that is not a bad thing, right? But if you're talking about it just national heritage, it depends on the civilization you're talking about. It's that simple. I mean, come on, man. If you're studying Chinese history, you might want to question it if you saw white or black or South American people involved, And I mean, if you're studying like the Aztecs or the Incas, yeah, well, I should see my Native American brothers and sisters in there, Then for sure, yeah, absolutely, built those great sort of step pyramids and stuff like that. Yeah, for sure. No, great, But if I'm studying a different civilization entirely, well, then I shouldn't expect to see myself in there, right? And here's the weird thing, right? It's that, and this was obviously made in America, so there's obviously certain Americanisms involved in here, right? And you know what? I personally know a lot of absolutely brilliant black intellectuals. Thomas Sowell, right? You want a brilliant mind? Go to Thomas Sowell, right? An economist. This man is an absolute genius, right? And guess what? Right? He's published, he's contributed a lot to society. But does the black community laud him? No, not at all. In fact, they send him death threats. Right? Why? Because he refuses to abide by this leftist, this idiotic ideology, and he calls them out on the nonsense. And he says, no, you want to get ahead in life, get an education, right? Take some responsibility, and then you'll be fine. But no one talks about him, okay? So it's, there's actually a bias in here. I'm told that our national hero, that I'm shown that people of my color made it what it is. They're not interested in people of their color. They're interested in people of their color, right, that adhere to a particular ideology. Because if people of their color don't adhere to the ideology, well, then they're called an Uncle Tom or a race traitor. I've been called a race traitor before, right? Because when I say, oh, well, this is, and I'm probably going to get called a race traitor just for this video as well, right? It's like, if you're not allowed to have an opinion unless you have our opinion. It's like, hello, there's something wrong there. You're basically doing what you're accusing white people of. Question number 5. I can be sure that my children will be given curricular materials that testify to the existence of their race. If you don't know that your race exists, then the problem is with you, not in the curricula of your school. Hello. Where does this even... how is this even a point? You're digging the bottom of the barrel here. Seriously. You're really digging the bottom of the barrel. That testify to the existence of their race. If you don't believe your race exists, look in the mirror and you will have all the evidence you need. This is just such a... I mean, this is university. This is so this is where the most intelligent people in the world are supposed to go to do stuff to help civilization, right? And this is what comes out of the university. completely and utterly, the humanities have become so corrupt, it's unbelievable. And this corruption is coming in, has infected society. And now this lowbrow, mentally frustrated way of thinking, this racist way of thinking, right, is now coming into the church, and I'm seeing it everywhere. It's despicable. It's flipping heresy is what it is. I mean, you're literally judging white people according to their race is what you're doing. But that's allowed because it's white people, and we're allowed to hate white people. It's ridiculous. I can go into a music shop and count on finding the music of my race represented, into a supermarket and find the food I grew up with, into a hairdresser's shop and find someone who can deal with my hair. Right, let's deal with this systematically. Find the music of my race represented. Let me go to the chart, June 16, 2018. So this is this week. Right, the top 20. We have One Kiss, Calvin Harris, and Dua Lipa. Where do they come up with these names? I honestly, I don't know. Anyway, so that is, they're about as white as you can get. Fair enough. This is the UK, right? I'll Be There by Jess Glynn. She's about as white as you can get. She's ginger, man. Right. 2002 by Anne Marie. Right, she's also, as far as I can tell, she's about as white as you get, brother. So that's some lily whiteness there, for sure. I might be wrong. Yeah, I might be wrong. Anne Marie. Nah. Whiteness confirmed. Whiteness confirmed. Alrighty then. Cool. So, yeah, okay. Whiteness confirmed. Number 4. Nice for What? Drake. He's mixed race, as far as I can tell. His father was black, African American, excuse me. His father was African American and his mother was, I can't remember, Jewish. His mother's Jewish. Right, so mixed race. Okay. No Tears Left to Cry by Ariana Grande. Ugh, who would listen to this stuff? Right, whiteness confirmed. Now, number 6 is a song called Solo by Clean Bandit. Where do they come up with these names? The music industry is so utterly ridiculous. Right, Clean Bandit. Whiteness confirmed. But hang on, featuring Demi Lovato. Demi Lovato, as far as I can tell, blackness confirmed. Right. Demi Lovato. No, actually, I'm wrong. I can't tell. You see, that's the way it is these days. You can't really tell. Is she Hispanic? Is she white? You can't even tell. And that's the thing. Most people look at me, they see a white guy, right? It couldn't be further from the truth, but how would you know? And that's how shallow people's assessments are. Okay, Demi Lovato. I mean, listen, I'm not clued in on this music stuff. I don't listen to this garbage, so forgive me. Right, so let's just say whiteness confirmed. So we've had one mixed race guy, right? Number 7, Better Now. The composer is Post Malone. Yeah, that guy's about as white as you can get. Shotgun, George Ezra. Whiteness confirmed, right? So a lot of white people, all right. That's number 8. Number 9, Flames by David Guetta and Sia. Yeah, whiteness confirmed. Number 10, Yikes by Kanye West. Yeah, well, okay, blackness confirmed. Number 11, again, All Mine, Kanye West. There we go. Number 12, George Ezra. All right. Number 13, I Like It by Cardi B, Bad Bunny, and J Balvin. Cardi B, blackness confirmed. Bad Bunny is from Puerto Rico. Right. J Balvin, if I'm not mistaken, is from Colombia. Let's have a look here quickly. Yep, he is from Colombia. So, right? Can I be guaranteed that I will find music of my people? Well, at least my people represented in an indirect way. No Brazilians yet. So I might be oppressed. German by EO, Blackness Confirmed. Oh, what a stupid song as well. Lullaby by Sigala and Paloma Faith, Whiteness Confirmed. That was 15, now number 16, Leave a Light On by Tom Walker, Whiteness Confirmed. 17, Ghost Down by Kanye West. There we go. Blackness Confirmed. Familiar by Liam Payne and J Balvin, another white dude and a Colombian dude. If You're Over Me, Years and Years, yeah, Whiteness Confirmed. And at number 20, Love Lies by Khalid and Normani, both of them Blackness Confirmed. And I think there might be some mixed race stuff in there. So, number 6, can I go into a music shop and count on finding the music of my race represented? Absolutely. Absolutely. Assuming you like rubbish. I mean, because, you know, but let me be fair. Let me be fair. I'm Brazilian, so I should expect to find samba. No samba. So this probably means that I'm not privileged. I'm oppressed. See, I'm oppressed and I didn't even know it. I can't find any samba in the top 20 charts. It's tear for me. Really, come on. You know, just... Who goes into shops for music anymore these days? You just download it, buy it online, you know, Amazon, whatever. You just get it all there, you know. Have some samba music. But I'm not entirely sure it's very Christian because it's got some seriously pagan roots and stuff like that. But anyway, right. Now, still on question number 6. Can I go into a supermarket and find the fruit I grew up with? Now, assuming that you grew up with fruit and vegetables and meat and chicken, then yes. If you want to give it a specific ethnic flavor, then, you know, maybe you should learn how to cook. Come on. This is so stupid, right? The supermarket. Can I find the food I grew up with? Aren't you talking about a restaurant, right? A restaurant that cooks your native foods, you know. I mean, what are you looking for? I mean, I can go into Tesco and I can find over here. And if you're a Caribbean, you can find all the Caribbean herbs and spices. If you are Indian, you can find all the Indian herbs and spices. But I can't find any Brazilian herbs and spices. So I must be oppressed. No, but you can find black beans and, you know, onions. Brazilians use onions, bananas. Brazilians use bananas. We have bananas. You know, rice. Brazilians eat rice. So, yeah, this is scraping the bottom of the barrel for privilege here. I mean, come on. It's like, what does any culture or ethnic group eat that not everyone else eats exactly the same way? It's just seasoned slightly different. Come on. You know, and in these days with importation, you can find whatever you want. You know, so stop whining and learn how to cook, right? If you really, really need to have it the way that grandma made it, then learn how to cook, right? Puts hair on your chest. And go into a hairdresser's shop and find someone who can deal with my hair, right? Maybe it's because of my male privilege that this doesn't apply to me, right? I just let my hair grow, and when I get sick of it, I take the clippers, number 2, off it goes. Simple as that. But as far as I can tell, black people don't have a problem with this either, right? Because what they call ethnic hair, there's someone very close to me who works in the hairdressing industry, and I know a lot of people in the hairdressing industry, and it's called ethnic hair. So basically black people hair type of thing. And it's not only black people that have that type of hair. It's even in my family, those members of my family who the phenotype has been expressed as much darker and more African have the same. So even Latinos and stuff like that can have that sort of really, really difficult to manage hair. As far as I know, they don't have problems. You know, there's places all over. In fact, if you look up, there's a few movies called Barbershop and Beauty Shop with what's her name? Queen Latifah. It's like black people hair salons are so iconic that they've even turned They've made movies out of them. Okay, so no, it's not a problem. Not a problem at all, right? But if you're living in a country where you are a minority, then you should expect to not find as much of your stuff as everyone else is going to find of their stuff. I mean, no one goes to China or to Malaysia or to the Middle East and complains about this. I mean, why is it only a problem for Western countries? Hello, if you are a minority in a particular country, you should expect that in general your stuff is not going to be as well represented. Why? It's because, you know what, white people need to earn a living as well, right? So if a white person, I mean, come on, you're a black person. Let's say you go and find a shop, a hairdressing salon, and you see a white person over there that's now going to do your hair for you. Are you really going to trust them? Come on. Right, some lily white, skinny white girl, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do cornrows and stuff like that for you." You're gonna be like, no. What are the chances she's gonna know how to do it properly? I mean, not that she won't. I mean, you know, in fairness, but I mean, come on, this is not a big deal. I mean, unless you're a woman, this is not a big deal, right? So I'll leave it to women to decide whether this is oppressive or not. But yeah. This is not an issue. Question number 7. Whether I use checks, credit cards, or cash, I can count on my skin color not to work against the appearance of financial responsibility. Doesn't it stand to reason that if you have a check, if you have a credit card, that means that the bank has determined you to be financially responsible? Right? It's like you don't get any of those unless you've been determined financially responsible. Hello? I can count on my skin color not to work against the appearance of financial responsibility. Do you want to know what gives the appearance of financial responsibility? Spending your money on stuff that isn't wasteful and rubbish and garbage. So if you're buying your 100th pair of shoes, right, then it might be reasonable to think that you're financially irresponsible, not to mention vain and materialistic. Okay, so spend responsibly and people will perceive you as responsible. It's that simple. And if you have a credit card, it means that you've been determined responsible, right? I mean, come on. Yeah. This is ridiculous. And so no, it doesn't yes, I can go and I can be assured of that. So far, even though I'm a minority in this country, I seem to be very privileged. And let me tell you something, right? My name is Morgan da Silveira Lopes, right? That's my name, right? Anyone looking at my name on a piece of paper, they know this guy, he is not part of the whiteness brigade, okay? There's a good chance that someone with the name Morgan da Silveira Lopes is not a white supremacist. So yeah, okay? Just nonsense. Yeah, they're just finding any reason to create division and to create resentment and to for people to just resent and hate and fight each other. That's all they're doing. This is meant to antagonize people and to indoctrinate, you know, poor silly university students who don't yet know anything about the world. Question number 8. I am not made acutely aware that my shape, bearing, or body odor will be taken as a reflection on my race. Tick. So, me as a Latino, I seem to have a lot of white privilege. Actually, body odor. Not so much as a reflection on my race, but as a reflection on my gender, right? Very often I come home and my wife is like, listen, stinky boy, go have a shower. So, my gender is oppressed because men are seen to be more stinky than women are. So we're oppressed. I didn't even know. Dear. This is ridiculous. Acutely aware that my shape, bearing, or body odor. Shape, yeah. You know what? Brazilians and black people have the best bums. I'm sorry. The best bums and thighs in the world. Okay? White people are jealous of us. Okay? It's like, I'm sorry, okay? That's a good thing, right? if every single girlfriend I've ever had, if you could go through all the list, and I've dated all sorts, okay? I've dated Romanian girls, Jewish girls, Latino girls, all of white girls, like British girls and stuff like that. I've dated them all in my time, and one thing every single one of them had in common was a big butt, okay? Because hey, it's the best. Right, and I'm not trying to be crass or rude here, but seriously, certain body shapes are more common to certain races than others. It's not a privilege thing. It's not a racist thing. It's just a fact. Okay, when you have isolated groups of people that have been isolated for thousands of years, and they interbreed and all that kind of stuff like that within that population, you are going to get certain features certain genetic features that are expressed to a heightened degree. It's just that simple, right? It's like with Jewish people, they tend to have bigger noses. It's just one of them things, right? Come on. I mean, one of the things I mask by having a beard, and when I say mask, it's not because I'm doing it intentionally. I have a beard because my wife likes it, okay? Is I've got really, really big lips for a white guy, all right? Because most people don't realize looking at me that I'm actually a Latino. And I've always been told in my life, man, you got big lips for a white guy. And then I'm like, well, I'm actually Brazilian. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. Sort of thing. So it's just, who cares, right? I mean, this is, you've got to be seriously, you've got to be so high, you've got to be really neurotic in order for you to care about any of this stuff, right? It's just so ridiculous. Question number 9. I can worry about racism without being seen as self-interested or self-seeking. As far as I can tell, white people are the only ones that have this problem, right? Literally every race of person or ethnic minority person on the planet seems to be entitled to worry about racism, like all the time. But heaven help a white person if they are like, maybe we're being unfairly misrepresented. White people are literally the only ones that are not allowed to discuss race. Ever. They're banned from the conversation. They get shouted down. They get told, no, your opinion is not valid because you're white. Okay? This is actually an ethnic minority privilege, not a white person privilege. This is ridiculous. This is hypocrisy. It's like minority people do nothing but talk about racism. Right? That's all they ever do, and they're lauded and praised for it. Oh, how brave of you to speak out against oppression, right? But heaven help a white person if they do it, and then immediately they're seen as self-interested and self-serving. Immediately, oh, you're a white supremacist. So this question is just pure hypocrisy, right? If you see this in your church, run it out of the church, because this is disgusting, right? This is racism against white people. Number 10, I can take a job or enroll in a college with an affirmative action policy without having my co-workers or peers assume I got it because of my race. This was a problem created by you, not by white people. Right? If you want people to think you got something on merit, then get rid of affirmative action. Right? Because, I mean, how else are you going to separate yourself? And this is exactly something I've been saying for ages now, right? Is that decent people of ethnic minority backgrounds, decent hardworking people of ethnic minority backgrounds, affirmative action actually disadvantages us. Right? So get rid of affirmative action then, because affirmative action is actually just racism. That's all it is. Affirmative action has never helped people. In anything, it's actually hindered thousands and thousands of people by putting them into positions which they were not able to cope with, right? And as a consequence, they failed. So putting people of ethnic minorities into, let's say, schools that were too advanced for them, and they failed. It's not because of their skin color, it's because they just weren't up to task. And the people, the ethnic minorities who can get into these schools based on their own merit, they do well. Why? Well, because they're there on their own merit. It means that they can do well. So it proves conclusively, right, the fact that any ethnic minority can get into an elite school or into an elite position based on their own merit. So this question actually refutes white privilege, and it proves the fact that the Western world is a meritocracy and is not based on racism and patriarchy and whatever else. I mean, this own question refutes the entire ideology. And if you're worried about people thinking that, well, it's your own fault. You shouldn't have brought in affirmative action in the first place. It hasn't helped people. And it's just racism in South Africa, right? This point in case, in South Africa, I lost a job, right? Because I wasn't black. I'm an ethnic minority, right? But I'm not black enough ethnic minority, and so I lost my job. And my job was given to a guy who didn't know what the hell he was doing. And it wasn't because I didn't do my job well. I did my job very well. It was nothing. It was literally because I was the wrong color, and I lost my job and was given to another guy that fit the racial quota better, right? So guess what? Affirmative action worked against me, and I'm an ethnic minority. So, you know, these leftist social justice things have actually been more of a hindrance to me than what racism ever has. It's so stupid. It's just this is disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. This ideology. It's just racism. It's just racism and prejudice by another name. And it's socially approved and government approved racism and prejudice. That's all it is. Question 11. I can be late to a meeting without having the lateness reflect on my race. First of all, why are you late for meetings? That's irresponsible. You should get fired. All right? And here's the thing. Again, this is more hypocrisy, okay? This is more hypocrisy. Because being a person of ethnic minority, right, and being a Seventh-day Adventist, and I've got, let's put it this way, the Brazilian culture is very, very, because it's so heavily influenced by West African culture. Our culture is very similar to all African and even Caribbean cultures. Just the way we're very lively, we speak very loudly, we're very friendly. A lot of the music undertones and stuff are very, very similar. So I've always had way more black friends than I've ever had white friends, because we just relate to each other. I just relate to black people in general just a lot better, right? And we ourselves, us ethnic minorities, we are the ones that say, well, we don't work on official time, we work on Brazilian time, or we work on Caribbean time, or we work on African time, or we work on Seventh-day Adventist time. That's why we're always late. And this is something I've always found absolutely despicable, right? If you say that you're going to be there, so like, let's take Seventh-day Adventists, for example. It's a running joke in the Seventh-day Adventist community that there's regular time, and then there's Seventh-day Adventist time, right? And Seventh-day Adventist time runs about an hour late. That's disgusting, right? If you have a duty of stewardship, right, and just keeping your word and being decent and being considerate, then if you say you're going to be somewhere at a particular time, then you flipping well show up, right? Stop with this Adventist time garbage. All right, I can't even begin to tell you how many times in whatever church I've been a member of, whether in South Africa or whether in this country, where you organize an event and people are pitching up an hour late or even up to an hour and a half late, right? And then still have the audacity to wonder, oh, why is he upset with us? It's absolute garbage. It means you're showing contempt and a lack of consideration for the people that are putting in the time to organize things. It's unacceptable. Stop being late, right? And if people think that it reflects on your race, Well, then well, why? It's because when white people hang out with us, they hear us say that all the time. They hear us say things Caribbean time, Brazilian time, African time. They hear us say these things. We are the ones that are giving them that impression. So sometimes the stereotype is there for a reason, because it's actually true. So stop being late. That's the message. Stop being childish and irresponsible. And if you say you're going to do something, then do it. That's a lesson we can learn from white people. Honestly, I don't know how white people put up with this. The fact that us ethnic minority people can get away with this kind of stupidity shows exactly how tolerant white people are, or at least how they've become. Because yeah, they messed up in the past, for sure. They messed up in the past, but you know what? We weren't angels in the past either. You know, we have our own sins. Ridiculous, man. This hypocrisy. This is the soft bigotry of lower expectations. We're literally saying we want lower standards, is what we're saying. And then when they give us lower standards, then we want to complain, like with the affirmative action thing, right? They give us lower standard. We're like, no, we want lower standards because we've been oppressed and underprivileged. And then when they give us lower standards, we want to complain because, oh, well, that's prejudiced. Ridiculous. Question number 12. I can choose public accommodation without fearing that people of my race cannot get in or will be mistreated. Well, then I must be privileged as an ethnic minority because I've never experienced this. But the Independent. Student protesters campaigning for safe spaces block white students at Berkeley University. So they literally formed a blockade to prevent white students from coming in. Right. So is this white privilege? Right. The blaze. Right. Here we go. University of Minnesota organization bans straight white people from joining safe spaces. On campus today, people like Black Lives Matter and stuff like that, black people and minority people are segregating themselves to the exclusion of white people. Right? There are even certain accommodations on universities now that white people, straight white Christian people, are specifically barred from having accommodation in those places. This is not a white privilege issue. This is actually an ethnic minority privilege, because ethnic minorities are today, 2018, excluding white people and segregating themselves from not only this is just so this is demented, this is sin, this is insanity, right? It's like, how long did we fight to get rid of segregation in apartheid South Africa, right? But now all of a sudden here's segregation again. And who's the one bringing in segregation? Ethnic minority people are the ones bringing in segregation under the auspices and the pretense of making safe spaces. Safe spaces, another word. Safe spaces is another word for racial segregation. It's racism. It's racism by another name. Hypocrisy, double standards, right? How white people put up with this, I don't know. It sometimes boggles my mind that white people haven't just got so fed up and thrown us out of their country. And I wouldn't half blame them. Because you move to another country, right? Which most of us are immigrants, right? I understand that those people, the only exception is the United States, where because of slavery they were there and they had no choice, right? That's where they grew up, right? But no one's keeping you there, first of all, right? I don't see people flocking to Africa, okay? If the United States is so oppressive, it's like, listen, I've been an immigrant all my life. If I didn't like where I was, I moved. It's that simple, right? South Africa was becoming ridiculous. I moved. I know not everyone has the opportunity to do that, but I mean, I didn't have much. I left South Africa. I had nothing, right? Move. Right? If it's such a problem. But the fact of the matter that black people from other countries and Latinos from other countries are moving in to these oppressive places means that these places are not as oppressive as people want to think they are. It's completely ridiculous, right? I have more freedoms in a foreign country than I would have in my own country. More freedoms and more privileges in a white country than I would have in any other country. This is ridiculous. This is ungrateful. Yeah. Number 12, segregation. The only official government allowed, sanctioned, university approved segregation that is allowed today openly and blatantly on university campuses and university dorms and accommodations and stuff like that is segregation against white people. Question number 13. So far, it seems I'm quite privileged for an oppressed ethnic minority. Question number 13. I am never asked to speak for all the people of my racial group. Seriously. Ethnic minorities do this all the time. White people don't do this. White people don't do this. The whole thing about leftist activism is a small group of people who imagine themselves representative of the group, which they speak about as if that group is a monolith, in order to speak out. It's like this is just such hypocrisy and double standards. It's unbelievable. Social justice warriors are forever ad nauseum, right, talking on behalf of their groups, right? So you get some gay guy standing up there and speaking on behalf of all gay people, unelected. It's like, you know, or some black guy or some Hispanic guy or some Latino guy or girl standing up there speaking on behalf of the oppression of all their people. It's like, excuse me, you know, you don't represent us. You know, when did we elect you? It's like, I am never asked to speak for all the people of my racial group. This is a self-inflicted wound. All activism, feminism, LGBT, QRXP, and whatever else they're going to add to it, Black Lives Matters, all of it is a small handful of people, right, speaking on behalf of all the people of their racial and sexual and gender group. And they want to complain about, I mean, what are you complaining? You're complaining about what you are doing, right? That's what all of these activist group is groups of people, unelected, speaking on behalf of the entire group as if they know what the entire group wants and thinks and feels, and as if their experience is representative of the entire group's experience and thoughts, which is itself bigotry and racism. Hello. It's the very definition of bigotry and racism. This is a self-inflicted wound. White people don't make us do this. We are the ones that do this. Right? I can't tell you how many times I've heard my own family members say, well, it's the Brazilian fire. It's the Brazilian spirit. That's why I behave like X and Y and Z. I hear it all the time. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. Absolutely and utterly pathetic. There is a right way to behave and there is a wrong way to behave. I don't care what your culture is or what your ethnic group is or whatever the case might be. And I'm so sick and tired of hearing it, because I tell you, I hear, and I make no apologies for this. I hear family members and people of my own culture say it all the time. When they misbehave or when they act in an ignorant, stupid way, in an ungodly way, and then we stand up and we reprimand them and say, listen, this is wrong. This behavior is wrong. And they'll be like, oh, well, it's just it's our Brazilian fire. It's our Brazilian spirit. It's our Brazilian this and that. Garbage, right? You either behave like a civilized human being or you get lost. This is ridiculous. This is self-imposed. The Brazilian fire. I hate hearing that. It's the Brazilian spirit. It's the Brazilian fire. Yeah, there is a Brazilian way. We're more friendly, we're more open, we're more whatever the case might be. But misbehavior is not Brazilian. All right. Lack of consideration is not Brazilian. Right. That's poor character is what it is. And then you say things like that, and then you wonder why white people want to treat us like that, huh? Yeah, I'm up to here with hearing my own people say stuff like that. Up to here, fed to the teeth. It's like whenever I hear it, it's like, shut up. Can't stand it. Question number 14. Let's move on. Question number 14. I can be pretty sure that if I ask to talk to the person in charge, I will be facing a person of my race. Who cares? Right? When I want to speak to the person in charge, I'm asking for the person in charge because they're in charge and they have the authority to address my situation, right? Their race isn't going to make absolutely no difference as to whether they're going to provide me a good service or not, right? To assume that because they are of my race that they're going to treat me better is racism. It's the definition of racism. Everyone was very happy. Oh, Barack Obama, a black man in the White House. Black people are now going to be lap of luxury. And did it happen? No. Right? What makes you think that just because the person looks like you that they're going to treat you better? That's just so shallow thinking. It's unbelievable, right? Stalin, he looked like his Russian counterparts. How many Russians did he kill? Right? Mao, he was a Chinese man. How many Chinese did he kill? Go to Africa, right? Go to Rwanda. They all, the Tutsis and the Hutus, for all intents and purposes, they look very much like the other. How many people died there? People that look just like they do. And you see that all over the place. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at murder statistics in any country in the world, you are more likely to get murdered by someone who looks like you than to get murdered by someone who doesn't look like you. This is idiotic. This is shallow garbage, right? A person's color is not a testament to their character. This is racism. It's racism by another name of social justice. Pathetic. I've had people come to me, right, apologizing for the slavery that my ancestors endured, right, and how it's affected my life. You know, when they find out that I'm Brazilian, and anyone who knows anything, slavery in Brazil was about 5 times worse and 5 times more prevalent than it was in North America. First of all, right, there were more slaves in Brazil than there ever was in North America. Okay, much more slavery, right? Yet you don't hear Brazilians belly aching about it all the time. Right? And people come to me when they find out that I'm Brazilian and they want to apologize about how my life, it's like, how do you know what my life has been like? Isn't that racism by assuming that just because I'm Brazilian, I must have been affected by slavery or that you immediately know what my life has been like? Let me tell you what's affected my life. What's affected my life is the social justice garbage. And what's affected my life is the single greatest how can I say, the single greatest difficulty that I've experienced in my life is a dysfunctional family. And the dysfunctional family has nothing to do with slavery, has nothing to do with racism, has nothing to do with oppression, has nothing to do with any of this garbage, right? It's individual people who do not have the strength of character to be responsible and care about the people that they're supposed to love, right? And that is the problem for all racial minority people, right? If we're suffering, you can go anywhere, right? In our demographics, how many of us growing up without fathers, right? Depending where you go, sometimes 75% of us are growing up without fathers. That is worse, right? And it's ungodly, right? We're sleeping around. Right? People do that and you think, oh, that's not going to cause problems. Of course it's going to cause problems. People need their fathers. And not only so, they're growing up without fathers, and they're being looked after by mothers who were too irresponsible to choose a decent to sleep with a decent man that would take responsibility for them, right? So it's just godlessness, just all over the place. It's ridiculous, right? Absolutely ridiculous. This has nothing to do with racism, right? It's actually racism to walk up to me because I'm Brazilian and apologize to me for some imagined slight that because you're white, right? And I can't. If you're a white person, just stop being so pathetic. Stop being so pathetic. You are not responsible for what your ancestors did. Stop being so pathetic and letting this ideology prostrate you and stuff like that. It's ridiculous, right? If you want to help out people, if you are a white person, you want to help people out, introduce them to God, introduce them to Jesus Christ. It will change the heart, it will change the character, and when that is then, you will change a society by changing their hearts, the hearts of people, not through politics, not through political ideology and all of this social justice rhetoric garbage, right? The message of Jesus Christ changes the people's hearts, changes the people's minds, and makes people act more decent towards each other, because we realize that we're all brothers and sisters under God. We all have value, we all have dignity, and that's how you do it. No other way. No other way, right? Not to mention that all of this stuff is decidedly anti-Christian, right? All activism is anti-Christian. If you are a Christian, you have no business being involved in political activism, none whatsoever, because once they've done whatever they've done, they're coming for you next, all right? Because they segregate against Christians as well, right? They want all trace of Christianity and Christian morality to go right out of the window. So if you are a Christian and you are into social justice, you're basically suicidal, is what you are. Question number 15. If a traffic cop pulls me over, or if the IRS audits my tax return, I can be sure I haven't been singled out because of my race. Really? Is this the thing? Not to mention that Obama, as if I'm not mistaken, Obama targeted conservatives using the power of the IRS, by the way. Okay, so it's okay when a black president does it. This is hypocrisy. If a traffic cop pulls me over, I've been pulled over by traffic cops. I've been pulled over by traffic cops in the UK. Right? And I remember this one instance. It was late at night. I had been doing something. I was driving home and they pulled me over. And because that's what they do, right? Safety, we want to be safe, yeah? So they pulled me over, and I was polite. Yeah, the guys are doing their job, man. Right? Why am I going to sit there and assume? Because the guy has no idea that I'm an ethnic minority. He's got no clue. How is he going to know? Right? The only thing that he can see is long hair and beard, and the fact that I'm under 40. Right? And guess what? Most troublemakers look like what I do. Right? That's just a fact. It's nothing to get offended over. Right? You go to prison. Go to prison. Most of the guys in there look like I do. All right? They're male, they're scruffy, they're, come on, man. It's so they pulled me over because I'm a young guy in a BMW. Okay. And fair enough, man. So I was polite. Yeah, do you need my papers? There's my papers. And this guy actually went green when he saw my name, Morgan da Silveira Lopes, because he thought, now this guy is going to scream racial prejudice and all this kind of stuff. And he was very apologetic. I'm very sorry. Listen, I see that you are. And I'm like, dude, don't worry. I said, I'm not like that. I know you're just doing your job. And he was so grateful. It was a white guy. He was so grateful that I didn't start screaming, that I didn't pull the race card. Right? And he's like, man, thank you. Right? So just be decent, right? 16. I can easily buy posters, postcards, picture books, greeting cards, dolls, toys, and children's magazines featuring people of my race. Well, no, I can't. Well, actually, I don't know if I can, because there's no way of telling whether a person is Brazilian or not, because Brazilians don't have one look. Again, the most dividing, yeah, there's actually no way of telling. The The biggest dividing line is if a person is black or if it's white. But all of the brown shades in the middle, there's no way of telling, man. There's no way of telling whether that person is an ethnic minority or not, right? For all you know, the guy just got a tan that day, right? Or has been in this tanning salon. I mean, you've got no way of knowing, right? And like I just said, posters, postcards, whatever the case might be. I mean, I've looked around. First of all, who the hell cares, right? Come on, right? Really? Are you that petty and pathetic, right? It's like, if you live in a predominantly white country, you should expect that. Like, if you go to China, you should see stuff that's got predominantly Chinese. No one's complaining to the Chinese or the Japanese, or even go to Africa, right? Most of the stuff, where do you see? You see black people all over the place. Why? Because it's a black majority country. Big surprise, I mean, imagine that. It's a game of numbers, right? I mean, the fact of the matter is that the people producing this stuff need to earn a living. They have to make money, right? So that who do they have to appeal to? It's like, this shows that these idiots have absolutely no concept of business, right? If you're running a business, right, and you want to sell something, you need to market it. In order to be successful, you need to market it to the maximum number of people possible. The maximum number of people possible. So you go and look, what kind of a demographic am I working with here? 80% white people. There's your market. It's simple as that, and if you went to China, you would do the same thing, and you would market it to Chinese people. And if you went to the Democratic Republic of Congo, or wherever the case might be, you would market it to, you would design it towards them. You're being petty and pathetic is what you're being. How does this interfere with your life in any way? Question number 17. Man, they're scraping the bottom of the barrel here. I can choose blemish cover or bandages in flesh color and have them more or less match my skin. So first of all, the blemish cover, that's a woman problem. And that's a vanity problem. Ladies, stop wearing makeup. It's a waste of money, and that stuff is poison. Modesty is the way to go, right? Especially if you're a Christian, right? Modesty is the way to go. I'm actually going to do a video on makeup to show you exactly how corrupt not only the industry is, but how corrupt the philosophy behind it is. You should stay away from that stuff, right? So that's a woman problem. It's not a man problem, sort of thing. It's not even, and every single woman I've ever spoken to of any race has always had a problem finding blemish that matches her, because again, there is no one color. All right, it's difficult. Or bandages, so I can choose blemish cover or bandages in flesh color and have them more. Really, that's your biggest concern. You've got a gaping wound. Is the bandage going to match? Really, that's your biggest problem when you've got a wound and you're bleeding. It's pathetic. This is ridiculous. This is scraping. This is just looking for an excuse to fight with people. Okay. The bandage more or less match my skin color. Who the hell cares, right? Go and buy a bandage with Ninja Turtles on it or with Mickey Mouse on it. Those exist too. I mean, honestly, man. If it's such a problem for you, go buy something else. Free market. You're not going to force people. It's all about you forcing people to appeal, to cater to their neuroses is what they're doing. Ridiculous. Yeah, I've been injured. I need stitches. My biggest concern, will the bandage match my skin color? Yeah. You've got your priorities straight. Question number 18. I can do well in a challenging situation without being called a credit to my race. Really? Again, this is another example of self-inflicted wounds, right? You hear nothing but ethnic minority people lauding the representative people of their race, saying, hey, you're a credit to our people. It's like, come on. White people are not forcing you to do that. Right? You're doing that yourself, right? So Can I do well in a challenging situation without being called a credit? This is not a white privilege issue. This is an ethnic minority stupidity issue because we're doing it to ourselves, right? We're so insecure, right? We're so insecure and so afraid of being thought of as inferior that literally if someone who is a member of our race so much as farts roses, oh, wonderful. You're a credit to us. We do it to ourselves, man. Come on. And I'm going to say something, and I know I'm going to upset a lot of my Brazilian friends, but it's one of the reasons why we're obsessed with our football is because football is one of the main decent things that comes out of our country. Right. I mean, Brazilians aren't really known for anything other than football. And there's a reason for that, right? We're a dysfunctional society, right? And I mean, you can tell by the fact that we voted in socialism how stupid we are, right? Bring in socialism. Hey, 2 corrupt presidents, nothing but problems, right? Impeached, the violence, the crime and all that. That's self-inflicted. That has nothing to do with white people. It's because we are godless and we can't get our lives straight. Us. But no, we want to praise ourselves when our footballers do well. Yeah, because that's the most important thing in life, right? Is the fact that Brazilians have got 5 World Cups. Yeah, that's the most important thing in life. It's ridiculous. It's a self-inflicted wound. We are the ones doing that all the time. This isn't a white privilege thing. Maybe the whites are just privileged because whites aren't stupid enough to do this all the time, right? Because rather than worry about the skin of their people, like Shakespeare, they don't study Shakespeare because he's white. They study because he was actually a literary genius, right? So content, not the race, right? So let this be a lesson to us ethnic minorities. I don't care who you are, right? Whoops. Us ethnic minorities. Do you want to do as well as the white people? Right. Then become blind to your race, right? Forget about the fact that you are an ethnic minority. Become blind to that. You want white people to become colorblind? Well, then you need to become colorblind as well. And when you look at something, you need to look at it for its merit. Will this help me? Is this praiseworthy? Is this good? Will this edify me? Is this winsome? Is this holy? Is this righteous? Yes, then I'll take it. Forget about the race. Forget about the culture. Is it right? Is it good? Then I'll take it. And that's why the white European races have done so well, right? They weren't the ones that invented writing. They didn't invent writing. They didn't invent mathematics, right? But because they were willing to learn from other people and employ and bring that into their culture, that's why they did well. We need to do the same thing. Rather than reject stuff because, oh, you're acting white. That is the most demented phrase one of the most demented phrases I've ever, you're acting white. So because I want to be successful, now I'm acting white. Really? Because I want to be literate, because I want to be well-mannered, because I want to be on time and punctual, now I'm acting white? Right? It's like morality is not an ethnic issue, right? Morality is not invented. Morality is discovered, right? So morality is not the property of a race or a culture. Morality, right, is a universal, it's an abstract, objective thing, and it is discovered. It is not invented. So this business of acting white, right, it's garbage, right? If there's a certain moral, right, it's not a white moral, it's an objective truth that has nothing to do with people's race. Nothing to do with people's race. It's an objective moral duty. It's an objective moral good, right? And you are not acting white or anything, right? When you appeal to these kinds of things, especially if you're a Christian, right? Because where does morality come from? Where do good things come from? It comes from God. It's not none of this acting white and none of this appeal to culture. Man, I'm so sick and tired of hearing when I'm in a church and I say to people, what are you doing over there? Why are you doing that? And they're like, oh, my culture, this and my culture. I don't care about your culture. I don't care about my culture. Because I'm a Christian, I care what does God say is right? What is objectively right and wrong? That is the standard, not your stupid culture, because what has your culture done for you? Right? What has my culture done for me? What has anyone's culture in the world done for anyone? Nothing. Because human beings are miserable and we do nothing but cause problems for each other and for ourselves. right? We need a higher standard. This is a disgrace to appeal to our culture. Because unless your culture is perfect, you're so perfect that you're going to go to heaven just by being in that culture, then you're wrong. You have no business appealing to your culture, right? And culture is more than just how you dress and whether you eat curry or whether you eat pasta. That's not culture, right? Culture is a way of behavior, right? And if your way of behavior is objectively wrong, then it's wrong. End of story. And it's not a racist issue to say so. Question number 19. I can walk into a classroom and I know I will not be the only member of my race. Again, it depends which country you live in. So you wouldn't say it's Chinese privilege if a Chinese person can go into a Chinese school and see nothing but Chinese people. Or an African person can go into an African school and see nothing but other African people. That's not that's not privilege. It's demographics. It's a numbers game. It's mathematics, right? And guess what? Whether or not you can see other people of your race has zero to do with the quality of education you're going to receive, right? Because you can go into many schools in Africa, right? And I've seen them, and I've been in some, and I've been in some of them, right? And you can find people of your ethnic, and the education is pathetic. You leave school and you are still as illiterate as you were as you went in, right? Race has nothing to do of the educators or the pupils, has absolutely no bearing on whether you're going to get a decent education or not. It's got nothing to do with it. And if it was, then you have to wonder, why is it that Asian people are doing so well in Western universities? It's ridiculous. I will not be the only. Hang on. And you know what? Sometimes being the only member of your race is a good thing, right? I was always quite, my whole entire life growing, because I grew up in South Africa. The majority of my life when my parents left Brazil, I was still a baby. Never, ever, ever was there ever another Brazilian in my class, ever. And it was zero problem. In fact, it was often a good thing because, hey, there's something different about the guy and people like difference. And I got along with people. I was popular enough. I had friends. It literally affected me nothing at all. In fact, it sometimes benefited me. I remember I was at a New Year's party once. The poor guy, he regretted this. I was at a New Year's party once, and there was a group of guys talking to some girls and stuff. And there was one girl, I'm like, yeah, she's kind of pretty. She's kind of hot and whatever. But I thought nothing of it because she was chatting to another guy. And so I was chilling out, talking with some other people. And the next thing I hear is like, oh my God, you're Brazilian. The guy she was talking to made the mistake of telling her I was Brazilian. And now all of a sudden I was the it thing. And her and I ended up dating for something like 2.5 years or something like that. This guy made a big mistake telling her I was Brazilian. So yeah, it worked to my advantage. Sometimes it works to your advantage, sometimes it doesn't. Who cares? Suck it up and carry on, man, for heaven's sake. I mean, and there have been other times where, because I was Brazilian, like I had another girlfriend, right? And the fact that I was Brazilian was a huge problem for her mother. Her mother did not like me one bit, for no other reason other than the fact that I was a foreigner, right? And did it affect my life? No. I still dated her, right? I've been threatened with death because I was dating a girl and I was of a different race. I've been threatened with death. And did it make a difference? Is it unpleasant? Yeah, it's unpleasant. Of course it's unpleasant. But hey, here I am, happily married. Who cares, right? Move on, man. You can't lose your mind over every silly little thing, Prejudiced people will exist, but they are not in the majority. And they literally had zero influence and zero effect on my life, on how successful I would be in life. And I mean, this is not that I have never heard people say, oh, you Brazilian bastard, go back to where you came from. I've heard that a lot, right? I've heard that a lot. But how much has it actually done in my life and actually affected me? None. right? You brush it off and you move on, man. Crazy. 20. I can enroll in a class at college and be sure that the majority of my professors will be of my race. If this is your biggest concern, you've got your priorities wrong. You want quality professors that are going to give you a quality education, right? Whether they're black or white, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. So now you're gonna have a quota and put professors in there that fill a quota, right? And you don't care whether they're the most pathetic professors ever, and you're gonna fail your degree because they're so useless, right? This is not an example of white privilege or anything. This is an example of priorities that are wrong. These are wrong priorities. These are racist priorities. This is pathetic. This is garbage, and this is not gonna take us anywhere good. Not going to take us anywhere good. This is disgraceful. Because how long until this comes into the church? How long until because first of all, this garbage is already in the church. When I speak to people, when I go and visit places to preach and stuff like that, and I hear the whispers of these things, and I hear these things coming out in the questions, right? And people are asking about these things, and some people, and there are ministries even within our church, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I see it even in other churches that revolve around the social justice, political activist garbage, this ideology in the church, right? It's a disgrace. But how long until they bring this into the church now and say, you have to have X amount of black pastors, X amount of Spanish pastors, X amount of this pastors and stuff like that. And you're going to be saddled with a pastor who's completely useless, right? Who's completely useless, is not actually properly qualified for the job. And you want to get rid of him, and you won't be able to get rid of him, because when you want to get rid of him, they're not going to ask, oh, is it because he's a bad pastor? No, they're going to ask, oh, it's because you're racist. It's because you're racist and because you're prejudiced. How long until this comes into the church and creates division, right? I already know some churches where they will refuse to evangelize to white people, or they will refuse to have a white pastor because of this kind of stuff. Imagine if back in the day, if the Apostle Paul and the Apostle Peter and all of those guys they were Jews, and the Jews were being oppressed by the Romans, severely oppressed by the Romans, oppression that no person alive today in the West knows about, has ever experienced, right? And God said to them, go and preach to the centurion, go and preach even to the Romans, go and preach to the Philistines, who often went to war with you and killed your fellows and killed your brothers and sisters and oppressed you. Go and evangelize to the Egyptians who slaved you for 400 years. Go and evangelize to the whole world, no matter how they've treated you. And now we're going to bring this into the church, this garbage, and use this as an excuse to create conflict in the church. This is pathetic. This is absolutely pathetic. And I'm seeing this. And what I'm not seeing is I'm seeing no one talk about it in church. This is garbage. This needs to be done away with, right? If you look at another person, you see a child of God. And if you see anything else, you have a problem. This is unacceptable. This ideology comes from a satanic place, because at the base of this ideology is one of the ultimate goals is to eradicate Christianity. Right? And I'm going to make videos talking about that. They want to eradicate Christianity because in their minds, Christianity is a white man's religion even. It doesn't come out in this test, but it comes out in their ideology. The patriarchy and Christianity and stuff like that, they hate everything. They hate everything that the Christian West stands for. This is dangerous, man. This is dangerous, and it's going to do nothing but create more division. And the questionnaire finishes with a question. It says, racial privilege is only one form of privilege. What are other examples of privilege? So now they have to just fabricate. This is encouraged, or just imagine stuff. Privilege based on gender, sexual orientation, class, and religion. There it is, class and religion. Because as far as they're concerned, Christians have the most privilege. Right? They don't care about the fact that Christians in the Middle East are being strung up and burnt alive. No, they don't care about that, right? You hear none of them protesting that, right? Oh, poor Muslims, right? Oh, they're so oppressed and so, oh, shame, poor them, right? Which is fine. A lot of people treat Muslims unfairly, and that's wrong, right? That's really, really wrong. But go to the Middle East. No one gives a damn about the fact that there are Christians being strung up by their hamstrings and having their necks cut off and stuff like that. No one cares. right? Because why don't they care? This is not, it's, they hate everything that's good in the world. Sexual, so here we go, privilege based on gender, sexual orientation, class. It's like every excuse to make one person fight with another person they want. This is actually part of the 10 Commandments, is do not covet your neighbor's wife, do not covet your neighbor's goods, do not covet anything that belongs to your neighbor, whether it is his privileges, whether it is anything. This, ladies and gentlemen, this actually will fall under the sin of covetousness, because people are looking at other people and imagining that those people have something better and something that they do not, and is breeding resentment, which is gonna turn into violence. This is the sin of covetousness, and people don't actually realize it. Right? And they're masking that by appealing to tragedies and problems that happened hundreds of years ago, and trying to keep that. And you see it in the Bible, where the Israelites tried the same thing. They tried the exact same thing to complain about the Egyptians that had enslaved them, and every single time God said to them, no, don't do that, because yes, the Egyptians, yeah, they oppressed you, but you know what? Under the time of Joseph, they were good for you. They were good to you, right? So you can't judge the Egyptians by their race. You have to judge each person as an individual, and it's the same thing now, right? And God will say to you, did white people enslave? Yeah, white people enslaved, for sure. It's terrible. But you know what? Black people enslaved other people as well. Arab people enslaved other people. Chinese, everyone enslaved someone in the past. If you go into the past, everyone is guilty. Everyone is guilty. But you want to know what else white people did? White people brought an end to slavery. No other culture, not my culture, no one else's culture, right? No one else's culture. And that's a shame on us. And that's a shame on us too. Not just the shame of slavery is everyone's shame, because we've all done it. Our ancestors, every single one, it was a universally accepted practice in the past, universally accepted practice. And the only ones that had the presence of mind to end slavery were white Christians. If it were not for white Christians, slavery would still exist. So did they do bad things? Yes. But you know what? They also did good things. Right? So if you want to be fair and balanced, yeah, okay, they did bad things, but then also be grateful for the good things that they did. Be grateful for the fact that a Western country will allow you in order to make a life for yourself, which is what I've done. I've come to the UK, a white country, right, and to make a life for myself, and I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. I'm happy. I have everything I need, and that is a privilege. And above all, I know God, and that's the biggest privilege. This is disgusting. Can you think of ways one might have privilege based on these factors? Example, that you do not have to worry about being verbally or physically harassed because of your sexual orientation, or you can be sure that your religious holiday will be acknowledged and represented in store displays, classrooms, and discussion. If you are a Christian, if you are of any religion, and your religion suffers whether other people accept it or not, then you are religious for the wrong reasons. That's apostasy, right? Your religion's between you and your God, right? Whether other people acknowledge it or not is irrelevant. Does it make it more difficult? Yeah, sure, it can make it more difficult. But you know what? The Jews always managed, because they have that community. They have that sense of community. And you don't hear them complaining like everyone else does. Please list these forms of privilege. So they're literally soliciting new ideas from the students to fabricate new intersectional ways of grievances. Let's just complain and whine about how that person over there has got it better than I do because of some undeserved thing. This is evil, and it's causing nothing but divisions. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I know that was really, I know that this is fiery and this is controversial, but if you see this in your church, do something about it. Get rid of it, because this is no good. This is from the pits of hell. It's going to create more division. And the Bible does not recognize such doctrine. Okay? Does not recognize such doctrine. Spread the gospel. That's what changes lives. That's what lifts people up from misery and from depression and oppression. It's Christ and the gospel of Christ to change the hearts and minds of people, not this political ideology nitpicking on stupid little things that have nothing to do with quality of life. It's ridiculous. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I leave you with that. I put all the links in the comments, in the comment, and I'll put the links in the video description. And yeah, that's it. I thank you for watching. Cheerio. Goodbye.